You know my face. You've seen this face. Garrett Adkins joins us again for another episode here of the Superhero Academy podcast. First of all, thank you for fucking coming back to Montreal. I'm always excited when you're in town.
I always got to come back. Montreal is a special place in my heart. I've already had my poutine. I've had my chocolate swirl.
You got that
all the goodies, all the sweets, all the treats.
Mm-hmm.
I love Montreal. I will say it
Yeah.
very often. I'm a huge fan of the city. I could talk about it again and again and again. But it is good to be back for my first 2020 trip. Back into the city, back into Montreal, back in the Storytory.
Mm-hmm. Well, welcome back. I mean, the world is it's an intense place as always. But right now, what I'm really happy about is that there is no confirmed case of a super disease like the coronavirus going around. What do you think the likelihood is of a massive pandemic outbreaking right now? There's apparently something I saw. I didn't dive into this at all a ton. Now, to be honest, I'm not really worried at this point, but I heard that there was apparently the potential of 90,000 cases because of some whistleblower that said that, like, in Wuhan they're suppressing the numbers. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about what's going down in the global pandemic side of the world right now?
Yeah, I don't know. It's terrible first and foremost. I mean, I think that with the age of information, how fast it spreads, we're kind of like we see a lot of things very quick and tragic that happens all around the world that typically we wouldn't see if we didn't have that fast information. But this is kind of an exception because it is more of a larger scale and it is getting more information. So we do become kind of desensitized whenever something like this is breaking out because we hear about terrible things happening all the time, and that doesn't kind of suppress the seriousness of the nature when it comes to this virus spreading.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, I do have faith in science and in people and in nature,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't like discount the craziness that this is having on so many different people, millions and millions of people. I think it's like 11 cities were quarantined, or maybe I'm wrong, but I know cities are actually quarantined.
I think it's like up to 26 million people are quarantined.
Yeah, you're talking about this, and like the only roads coming in and out are like highly scanned just for supplies.
Yeah.
And like a city in China is not just like a regular small town in
For sure.
West Virginia. Like it's like 11 million people.
Yeah. You've never heard of Wuhan before this story, and you didn't know that they had like as many people as New York City.
Yeah, probably even more. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting to see all of that playing out and like what that could cause. And I know that SARS was, I think, 2003.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And I wasn't like too conscious of what was happening on a global scale. So this is kind of like what they're comparing it to, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am. It's shocking the imagery and we were just talking about Karmagawa having their nonprofit on Instagram. You can go check them out. But they have these kind of videos showing people eating bat soup and that they think that it's coming from these live animal essentially markets, I guess, whether it be bat soup. I even saw like they had like it looked like sedated mice and stuff. There's some weird shit. John, I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, I mean they confirm that they track it down to this exotic food market where they do sell bat stews and like these it's like mice and stuff like that people are eating. Essentially they're alive, which is kind of crazy and really messed up in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they have tracked it back to there, and I think that some people are saying it is the bat soup, and then like what Karmagawa was doing, which is an interesting page to follow. It is kind of hard to stomach a lot of the content that they do put out there because it does show a lot of different cases like this where it's like, oh, it's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's something started by Timothy Sykes, which is a guy online as well. But they're kind of I think they were just referencing like what the actual state of that market is in general, and how kind of like what the conditions are and like what the reality of the exotic consumption of these animals, and probably like the pictures of like it's not the most. I don't think it's sanitary to eat like a live mice at any
warning for sure.
point, but they that's what they're kind of showing and pointing it back to.
Mm-hmm.
Is it potentially the bat soup, but confirm that it does trace back to this market, which is kind of incredible in and of itself that they're able to track something down that fast, just the power of like science investigation.
I am incredibly impressed with China
they,
right now.
They figure it out.
I'm incredibly impressed because one of the things that my brother actually alluded to, he was like, they're going to build a hospital in 6 days. And I was like, no way. And then I Google it, and it turns out they're building 2 hospitals in like 10 days. So it's like legitimately I saw video of cranes, just like 50 of them just or they weren't cranes, but they were like those excavation kind of tractors or whatever, going at it, just like clearing this entire site, ready to build a hospital. It's just going to go up in minutes. Like, I don't know, 3D printed style. They're just going to bring in 1 million Chinese people to just make it happen. It's wild how fast they are able to respond. Because if this was going down in America, there's no way we're responding this quickly. There's just, I can't imagine that we are that prepared.
Yeah. I mean, how do you delegate so many like different pieces to that? I mean, that seems like just like a management, just
Shitstorm.
mastery of like how to like delegate and how to like move and how to like even just give not alone like do the work, but even to know what the work is to be done and give it out in such a fast manner. So
Mobilize.
I don't know how they do
Mobilize
it.
that
I
many
mean,
pieces.
they're extremely efficient when it comes to building.
Well, I was telling you this yesterday. I believe that if there's one career move that we can make from a longer term perspective, beyond obviously going to China at this very moment, would be to visit China and to understand their culture and understand, like, man, when I visited in 2010, I would remember being in between 2 unknown cities on a train. And then, like, hours into it, I see just cranes, probably like 30, 40 cranes, all putting skyrise buildings up within what would be a few weeks, if not a few months tops, building an entire village or an entire city in just record speed. And the amount of catering that even professional sports does to China is becoming such a massive topic. And the Chinese market, from a movie-going market, is the biggest market in the world, from a consumption market, from a growing middle class market. I mean, it's the most relevant growth of business we've seen in our entire lifetime. And even here, when I think about real estate, we think about like, oh, Chinese people are buying everything. Farmland pricing in even near Valhalla in Montreal is going up because Chinese people are buying farmland across the country. So it's just such a massive, I don't know, there's such a gravity to the way that China operates, and it's so effective and efficient, and it's really amazing where they've come from on all of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the relationship that the kind of two powerhouses in the global scheme are at when it comes to the United States specifically and China are kind of like neck and neck with leadership, and who knows who's kind of like leading the force on that. And it's arguable. But what the interesting part between that relationship is that China in the West is kind of like either a B2B, like major deals are going down, like banking deals. You have people come doing major real estate deals, or it's kind of like the lowest B2C that can be done, where it's like these micro, low cost products that are sent across. And like that, it's that
Alibaba
consumer,
Express style.
Yeah, which is still kind of like bigger B2B businesses in a way, but when it comes to an actual cultural exchange and like a B2C and like a culture to culture exchange, it's still very untapped. I mean, basically they have their own social media networks that Google, Facebook, all these are blocked over there. And we were talking about this yesterday, and that kind of like opened up my eyes to the idea that, yeah, whenever there is a power shift, or whenever the floodgates are lowered a little bit, and we do have more of a direct communication and direct cultural splash, the waves hitting each other, it will be interesting to see how the globalization between those two, because there is a barrier that is set in place between government and right now that's not letting that globalization fully take place in a more of a free, holistic way. So whenever somebody does open it up, or whenever we do get more lax when it comes to our trade agreements, or whatever that looks like, it's going to be interesting to see how those merge, and also who are the leaders on a entrepreneurial business, influential idea level that are able to tap into that
market,
billion plus people that make up China.
Yeah, I there in the modern world, they have the great firewall of China, right? That is their new great wall, and there really is just a divide. I can't tell you, I couldn't name a single Chinese superstar. And I'm not saying Chinese meaning in America Chinese, like a famous basketball player, which rest in peace Kobe Bryant. We'll get to that. But the idea of I can't name you a movie star that's Chinese, that's in China. like, grew up in Beijing and is massive over there. I can't name you all the names of all their biggest companies in those ways. And to think that all of those people have not started doing marketing, like for example, Facebook ad money. Imagine how much money they would start to pour into getting our attention for their companies. I'm not even talking about like Chinese goods, where there's lots of Americans doing drop shipping businesses, FOB, Amazon style businesses, or whatever it is, where they source from China, but it's still being marketed by like a dude in I don't know, in New York or whatever it is. It's what happens when there's a guy in China who's looking to you and saying, I want to scale my presence online. I want to be an influencer, but in the American market, but I'm a Chinese billionaire. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to happen. I know that that's going to happen. And I think that that's going to happen in more and more of a media landscape that is actually saturating, but now there's like the new wave. And I was talking about, I was talking about like TV on demand or connected TV, right? How Fire Stick, Roku, Apple TV are all going to pass normal TV, normal cable satellite television type connections in 2020. And I believe that market is a stronger market for advertising and a stronger market for the world of marketing than anyone I know is talking about yet. So there's very little discussion about China as a market coming into America, and there's very little discussion about connected TV, because right now everyone's like, how do I do Facebook ads and how do I do whatever? And so, it's always interesting to look forward into the trends of what is to come. But I'll say this much. Definitely going to China, and I would love to go with you, and definitely going to learn Mandarin or Cantonese. I don't know. I haven't decided. I think Mandarin is probably the way to go in the next decade, because even if it's just to like say a couple of words and impress them and then have like a translator from there, I really believe that it's just a market we can't ignore.
Yeah. I mean, doing that even that little effort and beyond of like trying to integrate into the culture in some level, and that curiosity and that capacity definitely goes a long way with anybody who is trying to like go forward. And I think that that's even more than trying to tap into a different culture, but also just like how you show up in life in some way. Totally. Is like, are you like trying to like integrate? Are you trying to like be curious? Or are you trying to like go that extra effort?
Yeah.
Is a good way to do it. And I think that like just even the mindset and the awareness of like, okay, how can I expand? How can I learn? How can like I integrate? How can I open up communication? Is like the mindset of somebody who will succeed. So I think there's something interesting about that in and of itself. Is like, okay, we see where the trend is going. I see it's something that I'm interested in, and then like, how can I integrate it? How can I add it into my conversation in some way?
Yep. I'll call you back later, okay? Okay, bye.
Yeah, and then the Roku thing in terms of the TV stuff, it's interesting because we had this conversation. I got in yesterday or the day before yesterday.
Yeah.
And right when I walked in, I checked my Airbnb, looked on the TV, and then the Airbnb host had left the Roku, and I guess this is more like outside of the States, where we have Amazon Fire Stick and we have the Apple TV. So it's the first time I've seen it. But that's traveling in a sense and getting out of your own comfort zone. I go somewhere like at least like 1 week every month and try to travel around, do different things. And not only to like network, see people, have a good time, kind of get out of my comfort zone, but also just to see like what's actually happening outside of my small little bubble of where I'm set up at the time. So right now I'm back in West Virginia, growing the business, spending a lot of time with my brother, growing that relationship a lot as well. When it comes to professional side, we're obviously like best friends through and through. So that interpersonal relationship's already great. But coming here back to the point of like traveling, get out of the comfort zone, is whenever I come to a place in the Airbnb and I see that that's on the TV auto playing, and they have Now This playing, which I know is like this big Facebook competitor and amazing content creator on that front. And I'm like, oh, they actually have a streaming service on this. And it goes so much deeper than even my own world. Whenever I'm on an airplane, and I talk about this a couple times, whenever I see people land, I never actually turn off my airplane mode right when it goes. I kind of look around and
to see what people check first.
I see what people check first, not in like a creepy way or look at like, maybe I am looking over his shoulder, but I'm just curious on like what are the first places people go to, and actually getting a sense of like how they're managing this relationship with their online presence, because specifically myself and Mark have a deep history and deep understanding when it comes to social media and content that moves, and like we're able to grab statistics and grab analytics of millions of people easily. If we like put effort into it, we can have a piece of content reach a lot of people. And it's easy to have this dissonance to who's actually being affected and who's actually consuming that content on the other side.
And what's really happening on the other side. It's less
Yeah.
about the substance of the content. It's like when you're looking over somebody's shoulder, it's less about like, oh, what's that person writing to their mom or whatever. It's more about like, oh, what app did they open first? How did they cycle through? Like, what did they go to, like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or did they like do something else?
You see Jay Shetty scroll across the screen. You see like our friends at Intelligence Sexy scroll across the screen. You see like people that we've collaborated with, like VaynerMedia, across the screen, and like you see all this stuff, these interactions and stuff happening. It's just very interesting to me to put that too. And that's the same whenever I go to some of my friends from specifically like high school and that I've grown up with, and I'll go to some of their Facebook pages or whatever it is, and I see them sharing these different pieces of content, and it just makes it more real about how the content that we're a part of, or the content and how culture moves, when I'm able to not only see it from the bird's eye view, but to see it from a very tangible, oh, this is my friend from university sharing that, and that resonated with him or her in this way.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed by how deep the silos are and how separate they can be sometimes. Like the number of times that I've been like, oh, like Gary Vee, and they're like, who's Gary Vee?
Yeah.
And I'm like, my God, like, you know what I mean? Like
Hey,
for
it's
me, it's
everywhere
like
for
he's
us.
legit everywhere on every device all the time, and every platform. And yet some people just have zero awareness of that. And there are definitely topics that are more mainstream topics, but I love to go all the way from the macro, which is like, okay, where's the ball going? Where's the puck going? If I want to use a hockey reference, which for me, China is an obvious thing, and I know that it sounds late, but not really. I don't think that cultural divide from a social media perspective, marketing perspective, is at all crossed at all. And at the same time, connected TV is still massive, and the CPMs and the opportunities for getting eyeballs there, and the depth of eyeballs, meaning when I say the depth of eyeballs, what I mean by that is the deepness, the depth of attention is higher on a TV with a little remote than it is on a cell phone where you're constantly scrolling and you're getting notifications and app switching a lot. On a TV, you app switch a lot less. So you're more likely to see the ad or to consume that content in a way that you wouldn't on a phone, or that you would very quickly get out of on another device. So that balance between looking at those macro trends and then like right before a podcast being like, hey, what's trending right now on Google Trends? What can we talk about? There's a reason why we started talking about the coronavirus. Beyond the fact that I think it's actually naturally interesting, we are also understanding that if this is in the cultural narrative and we make a little video on YouTube right now about that goes viral, or that has more legs, it is more likely to get picked up. Add a good headline, add a good thumbnail, put some good hashtags. You've got the right recipe, or you've got the potential for rocket, right? And it's just a game of that volume. Isn't that weird though? Because for me, legit, second thought I had after I heard that Kobe Bryant died. First thought was fake news. First thought. Second thought was, oh, I can imagine the amount of memes that are going to be made of Kobe Bryant right now. And then the third thought was, oh, that's pretty sad. And if I'm really honest about that, the first thing I thought was, it's probably fake. Second thing is just how I knew people would use this. And, many everyday people were just sharing a meme and what Kobe meant to them and whatever it is. But the real, like, power users of content creation, the Goalcasts of the world, for example, I know came out with a Kobe video today. And I knew they would. Because it's just, there's such a powerful wave of attention, and it's impossible to ignore what that wave is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super sad with Kobe. That's I'd been like seeing a couple of stuff on the TV whenever I was passing through the airports, and like I was on a hurry and I was going this place or that place, and I figured for some reason I thought that he might have like come out of retirement to play with LeBron, and I had these like different ideas. And then I'm sitting, and right when I get off the airplane, I get off, jump on the bus, go right down to St. Henry, which is a local spot here in Montreal, and go to this place called Outrage Market to pick up some of the best olive bread in the world. I talk about food very often in Montreal. It's very, very well known. And
Very
then
well known for
here's
food.
somebody speaking in front of me here, Kobe Bryant, but they're speaking in French, and I don't know French quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then my brother texts me about the news, like, "Hey, did you make it there safely? Kobe just passed away in a helicopter accident, and just want to make sure you're okay." And I was like, "Damn, that just like hit me. It like struck me." And then like this level of information and like sharing of it is something unlike that I've seen in a while when it comes to like global mourning over somebody.
Yeah.
It's so unexpected and so unreal, and yeah.
It's pretty unparalleled. I think it's just the shock value of the way he died as well is sad. I mean, I think there was some global outpour for people like Prince and David Bowie. There's a couple that I can think of. Or Robin Williams was a sad one. That was a big one too, I think.
Yeah. And I guess, and that's also what the age of when Robin Williams passed has been, I don't know, like probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even more than that.
Yeah.
But now we're at a level of like social media where I think it's even
storm.
more intensified. And if you like if you get like a deeper level, like energetics of something like that, then like the energetics of a loss just amplifies even more on a global scale, because we're all like energy, we're all vibrations, pushing stuff out there. Totally. And whenever we're like able to intensify it on a social front, I think it becomes a little more deeper and like really just like pushes those manifestations and those ideas, and kind of shifts in a lot of ways. So.
And that shows the shifts as well as the algorithm, right? Like if I didn't Google anything about Kobe Bryant, the likelihood that I would see Kobe Bryant videos on YouTube is low. But then the second I click on one and I watch like a part of one, then the top one, the next one, the next one, the next one, there's all that, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a matter of like even how much you slow down on something as well, so they know that
exactly
that's what you're slowing down on, because they can even if you like it or not like it, then or search it or not search it, they can tell about how much time your eyes are looking at the screen, where your eyes are looking at on the screen.
Yeah, whether you even clicked it, if you just moved and hovered over it and watched it for a second.
If you held the story to actually read the full meme, it goes so much deeper than even like a like when it comes to their algorithms and the AI that they have that are constantly learning from it. So it's even more incomprehensible than what we can as humans can understand, and how to optimize the software. There's AI that's like, even when it comes to like Tesla and auto driving and
the disruption.
They said, I was listening to a podcast the other day. They were like, they've done 100,000 miles on the road. They've done 3 billion miles in virtual reality. And like, it is the same thing, if you think about it, like, yeah, they're doing the real world experiences, but what's different than if they're able to put the same simulation and training the algorithms and the AI of these auto driving trucks, which is going to be specifically semi trucks, and then come to the consumer vehicles. There's still somewhere in some back corner of Google, there's a program that's running that's racking up millions and millions of miles every millisecond or something like that. That's learning and training.
Ironically, it's coming to Montreal. Google announced an AI office in Montreal.
It's a massive AI city in and of itself.
Totally. Well, we've been leaders in I would say in design and production around content and video games and just we have a ton of web development talent here, and it's just we've got a tech scene in Montreal that nobody talks about, or we do, but I think globally we're not quite recognized for it fully yet. But Montreal is changing. Montreal is like gaining real momentum. It's whether it be Chinese buyers coming in or the tech scene. I don't know. There's just something going on in this town that I feel really excited about. And it's been years that in the making, I think, because we saw the boom in Vancouver, we saw the boom in Toronto from a Canadian perspective. Now Montreal is like just on fire right now. The market is just insane. I was seeing, I even read something where they're expecting rent rates to go up 5 to 6% in Montreal this year in 2020, which is massive. That's a big increase.
That's very big, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's all these. We're in a weird world. There's an acceleration of all of these things, but I think Tesla is a great example of a company that is future pacing, right? Like they're worth more than Volkswagen now for the fact that they aren't just an automaking company. They are an AI company. They are a tech company that is going to find a way to monetize that your car can drive around and do Uber lifts for when you're not using it. They are going to monetize a way of actually having semi-trucks driving on their own without doing those different things. They're going to find ways to innovate that we only would have dreamed of years ago.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have like somebody like Elon leading the charge, and also like having such a fresh company in and of itself because it's hard for Ford and yeah, like these different companies to even like catch up to it because there's just so much like bureaucracy when it comes to the conversations happening in the boardrooms. Where somebody like that can push it, and the innovative talent and the people that come to a company like Tesla. Not that there aren't innovative people going to Ford in these places. There's a lot of people that are working at these different companies, but they're able to not worry so much about like the old systems are like, okay, let's think forward. You know what? We're not going to be like so secret about everything. Let's open source our technology. Whoa, okay, that's a massive PR headline, which Tesla's massive when it comes to like
yeah, they're open source
like
plugs.
yeah,
and
well,
stuff.
when it comes to just like PR and in general, like okay, let me grab some more attention by breaking the indestructible glass on the truck to grab some more PR attention, which probably got them hundreds of millions of dollars of free press just because they're covering a story where Elon Musk is just kind of smiling in the corner of his mouth because he knows exactly what's happening.
It's almost like he can't fuck up because the more he fucks up, the more that he gets the press and the headlines, and he's just so good at it.
Yeah, let me just take a hit of this joint from Joe Rogan. Oh man, the stocks fell a little bit. Oh well, look, yesterday it's up 100,000%.
Yeah,
he's doing fine. Yeah,
he's doing more than fine. I mean, he's on pace to get the biggest payout a CEO has ever gotten.
Yeah,
given the package that he made, which is that if Tesla is able to, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if Tesla's able to sustain over $100 billion in market value in market value from their shares, that he will get like I think a $55 million, or like he has the potential over years of getting $55 billion payout. But I think the first wave is like something like 100. I can't remember exactly how much it is. It's an insane amount of money. Amount of money. And it's stocks, but he can sell those stocks and it's a part of those stocks and make it a ton.
Yeah, if you think about it, like whenever you're able to have somebody that's brilliant when it comes to entrepreneurship, business, and also has a PR, just even has like an interesting personality, what that can actually do for a business. Obviously, you need to back it up. He's a brilliant businessman. He's a brilliant guy in general. I mean, he spends time reading thicker textbooks than probably like this. He's actually doing the real work. But also he's very smart and he's a personality in and of itself. And what that could do, even with like Solar City, one of the partner companies that Tesla acquired, which I think he helped fund through his cousin. It's like, okay, what can the CEO of that company, I don't think it's him, can do to even raise more awareness to the solar panels, or like how can you use that in your business to be a little more outrageous? We were talking about PR and publicity stunts and how I forgot his name. It's a documentary, I think it's called Supermention.
Yep.
I wish I had the guy's name, but he was like a PR specialist back in the day for a lot of musicians over the years, like decades. And one of his first clients was Alice Cooper, and they were going to London, I think it was, a city that they hadn't had too much traction, and they were just making their break into this market. And they were short on ticket sales. They had like 40% sold to this massive arena for Alice Cooper. So they put some crazy billboard together on the side of this truck, and I forgot what it was, something Alice Cooper outrageous, and broke it down in the center of London's most busiest street, practically like threw a wrench in the engine kind of situation where they could not move this truck. Broke it down, and the cover said something like that, like, this is the concert that your parents don't want you to go to, which is like typical like rebellion, Alice Cooper
60s,
style,
70s,
and then they sold it out within the next like hour or 2 hours. Amazing. It's like, how do you think outside of the box like that? Are they going to teach you that in a university? But it's like a level of like awareness and also brilliance of how to, like start a conversation and actually be entertaining. There's ways to growth hack it. There's ways to get PR. There's ways to pay for it. There's ways to go around it. There's ways to bust your ass trying to get an authorship. All these are great. All these are tactics. All these are things that we can speak about. All these things that we can teach about. But
can you do it?
Can you be a little ridiculous and like stick with it and know who you are and be a little outrageous in that way? I don't know. It's interesting. It's something to think back on. And I think people forget about the power of in-person publicity of like, oh, I gotta go global on this certain thing. But if I was to go back to Huntington, West Virginia, and give away $10,000 to plant 10,000 trees, that's massive. Like that's not only amazing in that in and of itself that more trees the better, but that on like a marketing aspect and
It
tribe
would
building and
get
community building and conversation building.
You would get over $10,000 of value back from it.
I would
immediately.
rather have these 1,000 new like I'd rather be seen by 50,000 people in this way and have 1,000 people that are always going to be like, yeah, shout your name from the rooftops.
Mm-hmm.
That way, as opposed to seeing like generically by like a meme that says it's 5 o'clock somewhere, which is always my typical like reference by a million people. You know, it's like, how do we think outside of the box this way? And social media and this online place isn't always the answer. It's like, how can we think the Richard Branson style?
Well, I believe that that's our challenge now. Like,
yes, I think it is.
I have, one of the references in one of the books that I'm reading right now, I just chose to read it because you and I have just dove into the world of PR. So we're in the process of doing, I'm in the process of getting verified on Facebook and Instagram. That's one of my goals this year. Why? Because I know that if I do it, the second I do it, a bunch of entrepreneurial friends are going to ask me how I did it. So you know what the answer is? You get a bunch of PR, you find a guy, and you make it happen. Now, I'll document that process. I'll go into it further. But the point is, we're in the process of, we figured out how to game the system, not cheat the system. There's a difference. Game the system is understanding how the sausage is made and then lining up all the ingredients for that to happen, right? So the memes, the culture, the Facebook group hacking, growth hacking, blah, 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 we know how to do it now. But I think now that we understand that, and I think that people like Ryan Holiday, who wrote Trust Me, I'm Lying, got to understand that, it's when they really got that at a level of mastery and then we'll go out and do, in his case, he did something with Tucker Max where he goes and defaces a billboard and gets national media coverage from it, kind of thing. This is what our career gets to become now. Mm-hmm. Like that's the frontier, at least from where I'm sitting. That's the frontier of what I want to do. That's what I want to do with Germ and his art. That's what I would love to do with you and just in some capacity. And to do that for brands like Impact Stories that you're creating, that's what I want to create. Mm-hmm. And I even look at my own career. Most of what I was able to build an influencer marketing company and get contracts and do all the consulting and whatever that I do, all really comes from the fact that I did something that was fairly radical. Walking out in the GMO cornfield and planting a tree, trying to build, and then eventually building building out of bottles, cans, and tires as a foundation known as Earthships. Like that radical story built a brand. It built an entire thing where I learned memes, I learned video, I learned social media management, and then that translated into so many of us in the group learning those things too, and Kickstarters and blah, blah, blah. If I don't do that radical step, if I don't seek discomfort, essentially, and I don't get to the edge of my own comfort zone mixed with, I would say the society's comfort zone of what is normal or what is okay, and then what's just outside of that, we've seen an increase in outrage culture, but what we aren't talking so much about is outrage or outrageous media. Outrage culture is obvious, right? People are getting mad and cancel culture, all that stuff is there. But outrageous media is really what's actually happening right now. It's Trump going out and saying a bunch of crazy stuff, and then Bernie Sanders saying the exact opposite crazy stuff. And I don't want to say he's crazy. I like Bernie in many ways, but either way, they're polarity. They're doing something that polarizes and mobilizes these communities, and we are in a shock culture. That's why the Logan Pauls of the world are blowing up. That's why we've seen the TikToks and all these things kind of move in cultural space, is that we are desensitized given the amount of content that we're seeing, that now we are only responding to the things that stand out. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that is just being a little wild, doing the crazy thing, destroying something, driving a Tesla off a cliff, being Mr. Beast and giving $100,000 away or $1 million away like he did recently. Yeah, that's where we're at.
It's an outrageous stunt, or it's being outrageously yourself. I think it's like a lot of the ways of like knowing what it is, which that is a superpower in and of itself. Yeah, is knowing who you are and sticking to that wholeheartedly. Obviously, like, don't be like ignorant in a sense where you're not open to different ideas, but like share on these things. And I still like at times don't like, I'm not too vocal on social media about certain ideas and thoughts and ways that things like different ideas and stuff that are having a positive impact on my life that I don't share out there first and foremost. But yeah, to know that, to share that, and to be confident with that, and to be open to that is very brave, and also is a good way to grab limelight. And also, with any limelight, you're going to grab a lot of backlash and a lot of controversy. So forewarned, but that's just part of the game, and it does work. And then it's a mental capacity of like, okay, this is what I actually want to talk about. This is what I'm comfortable with doing, and I'm humble enough to change my perspective or be open to that, or to have conversations about that if I do decide to go down that path of communication and sharing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that like, where is that in your priority list right now? So for me, looking towards what you're now building with Impact Stories and all the things that you're creating as what I would consider to be your growth as a media mogul, if you want to see it that way, and your understanding of media. Where do you think your own brand and your own voice is starting to live in that? I mean, I've seen your LinkedIn videos, but is that what you think is next priority? Is there other things that are priority for you right now?
Like LinkedIn's definitely where I'm sharing the most as myself, and Garrett. I think I'm gonna be more of like a figure within Impact Stories by like speaking about different pieces of it, doing parts of interviews, chopping up the videos that I'm like speaking in part of them.
Mm-hmm.
But 2021, like next year, and I kind of spoke about this. This year is more focused about building Impact Media, which is the agency, and then Impact Stories, which is just like a new kind of outlet when it comes to topics such as technology, entrepreneurs, movement makers, social public figures, and then also like technology in the space, environment, all around these like impact-driven businesses, ideas. So focusing on that, and then next year I'm going to be focused more on like, okay, how do I use this to speak on more stages? How do I use this to share more freely? So it's not the highest priority in myself to be like super active on Instagram at the moment. I definitely want to, and definitely looking forward to it. And I know it's coming more organically the less I'm paying attention to it. The more that I'm like just kind of like tapping into these other outlets and focusing more on myself and my health and wellness and all that stuff, like the barrier of caring is just going down more and more, which is interesting. So I'm writing more, sharing more on LinkedIn, have a couple of publications that we're looking to get on when it comes to writing. So yeah, it's unfolding, but there's no like specific strategy quite yet on how I want to build Garrett Adkins as a brand. It's coming from, there's a lot that can be done organically and just through myself becoming more confident and more in flow,
caring less about like the perfect
strategy. Besides that, which is kind of the best strategy in a sense of like, just like being authentic and sharing. So that's coming through pretty naturally. And then when it comes to a strategic level and how I want to use these different platforms and use these different microphones to build that, then we'll see how it goes in that capacity. But yeah, thinking more in terms of like the big picture, the bird's eye view, the years of what's trying to be built right now and what I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
So kind of all over the place for that answer, but
no, I think not at all. I think it's fair. I think you're saying, look, I'm not over strategizing it. Garrett Adkins as a brand is less the priority right now. Telling the stories of others and learning that process as well as the dynamics of team management. Like how do I build a team? Who builds what? Who posts what? How does this all happen without me having the input on everything all the time?
Yeah,
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
That's the challenge of scale. You know what I mean? That's the challenge of brand building. That's the challenge of trying to balance cash flow with output.
Yeah.
And recognizing those differences. What I think I admire about the way you're going about it is that you're not trying to figure out how to build a funnel out of it immediately.
No.
You're just willing to make really good content and then say, yeah, maybe there's a way to monetize that at some point. But right now, let's just focus on making the best content possible, and marketing and what we're learning through this will cover itself in and of itself through running an agency and hiring your friends, your brother in this case, in some cases too, that kind of stuff is really where it grows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, I'm sharing it. I think it's more of a, when you say that, it makes me think I'm more in like a documentation Gary V style phase where I'm just trying to like capture and understand and like just share what's actually happening,
Yeah.
making a lot of case studies of the step-by-step process and just sharing freely. And then it's a matter of like, okay, how do I actually continue this community building, whether it's an email list or whether it's just like consistently popping up at people's feeds. So I am building a level of depth and more of like tribe and community and a go-to source of communication and feedback, as opposed to like, I don't really care. Like, I'm not trying to make everybody my client. I don't need everybody my client. It's not my goal in anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to share ideas and like have a consistent flow and like a consistent platform to share the ideas that I find are interesting.
Yeah.
And that hope will help other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I've felt that the more I've dove been into the perfect tactic or the right tactic that would have the more gamified tactics, the more it's actually impeded my own creativity for just actually being a creator. Because I'm consuming how to do it, and then I'm testing, but then I feel like I'm never getting the real opportunity to return back to just like the core of creating for the sake of creating, no matter how many people are watching.
Yeah, just sharing.
And I've taken away the like I care about how many people are watching anymore, but I've definitely still have elements of I really want it to look like an art. Like I don't care who's watching anymore. I just want it to look like when somebody would see it, that they really understood that we put time and effort and thought into all of it. And that's feeling really better. But I know that the returning back to my roots and like telling the story of Valhalla again, documenting the story of like how the sausage is made, even though I like what you're doing with the case studies, I think it's a great idea, both for business, but also for yourself.
Yeah.
To like better celebrate your wins and understand your wins versus just like keep running on the hamster wheel, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, there's in the process of post-mortem when it comes to like what you've achieved and what you've done, and not only the like sometimes you get kind of lost in the sauce of just acting, but it's like, okay, how do you take time to actually strategize something, act on that something, not just stay in la la land and just dreamland, just thinking about it and like I might do this one day, but then acting on it and then properly giving yourself a post-mortem and a celebration of what you've just accomplished. So yeah, celebrating yourself. You did that. Cool. Celebrate yourself. Go out there and grab a poutine or whatever tickles your fancy. And then like, what's the post-mortem? Like what could have done better? Like what was the hypothesis that we actually had?
Mm-hmm.
How do we improve? And then amplify your growth as a creator, as a business person, and grow in that way. Because you're not actually taking the time to learn and improve and take that extra hour to 2 hours to just like think and like look over everything. That's like years of education right there in of itself. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to do the same thing over and over and over again until the answer magically appears or like forces itself into your head. So you need to give that time space so you can actually evolve through your life circumstances and not make the same mistakes again, or understand what went really right so you can lean into what really did work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Words of wisdom, my friend.
Yeah, watch out.
Curious what questions you might have for me.
Yeah, I'm interested in Valhalla specifically. What's lining up for the spring, kind of tapping into, I guess, just like even like re-emphasizing on what you see that looking like for the spring and what you're excited about specifically when it comes to that community.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'm really interested in from a community vibe is my ability to just show up and participate in a community, and then how much I can drum up from there. Like the second someone is in a community and decides I'm going to be a gatherer, I'm going to beacon out that people can come and join and participate and show up on us any given Saturday, for example, at the land, and that we'll have food and pizza and activities and gardening and eco-construction and all those things going on. That in and of itself feels really exciting. And this is the first year that I am not going, well, for first year in a few years that I've not gone to Costa Rica, number one. But it's also I think it's like 7 or 8 years that I've been going and traveling in winter every year. I mean, we went to Tulum, we've done Santa Barbara, we've gone to Austin, Texas multiple times, Costa Rica multiple times. I mean, this is the first time that I am like just really isolating myself from the rest of the world, not being isolated in the sense that my brother is behind the camera right now. There's you here. There's people. I see people all the time, but I'm in isolation from trying to over connect with everyone. And I'm really looking and diving deep back into what does it look like for me to lead. And I think that 2019 enabled me to learn that when I start to let others try and co-create with me is when the problems start to arise. And that actually happened in Valhalla. It also happened in Superhero Academy. And it also happened in our mastermind big time. The more that I am handing away the responsibility of holding the flag and then saying, this is what we're doing and that's that, and I determine that, and then everyone who's really in line with that, let's just participate in that and we'll all lift this flag together. The worse that I've had the results, and the more that I hold that beacon, the more powerful the result has been. And I don't think that's because of who I am or that I'm particularly special. I think I'm just a stubborn motherfucker. I'm just a stubborn guy who's willing to just stick it through because I didn't expect the short-term payout. I went into Valhalla thinking that in 10 years this might be the thing. And I thought that we would end up getting the Champlain Bridge and a train station and an exit and all that stuff in only about 10 years time from when we started. Now we're about to start season 8 of this 66-acre eco-village, building a school, all this stuff. And we are already seeing many of those components play out. So we're a little further behind in terms of the building of the first building. And that's what 2020 is about for me. But I believe that I'm stepping into that investor role and that leader role in that space where I'm just going to dictate more. And as Stephen Brooks would say, who runs many eco-villages and started many communities and successful ones that have run for 25 years or whatever it is, 24, 25 years, Punta Mona, for example, begin building a benevolent dictatorship of sorts. It's like, you can do what you want to do, but if I'm going to bring the resources, this is the way I'm going to spin them. This is the way I'm going to work this to build this movement. And to me, the movement is a return back to the land because nobody I know, very few people I know, I don't want to say nobody, but very few people I know can afford buying a house. Very few people I know have savings when it comes to my age group. When I meet older people, it's another story. Speak to my parents or whatever it is, it's a different generation, a different reality. But the incredibly inflated housing prices are just becoming cost prohibitive for people to get into this market. And I don't know of a 25-year-old who's like, you know what, let me take $500,000 of debt to buy a tractor and another tractor and start my farm business that might go up and down, that might have a bad season, or climate change might ruin and have a wildfire or something that destroys everything, and you have no security on. I just don't see that happening. And so how do we make that happen? How do we engineer conditions that provide for the planet, for the people who are going to take that risk and join that community, and then also enrich future generations to participate in that? So I will always say this: Valhalla is the most important work I've ever done. It still is. It's a brand that myself and many others worked to build, and we kind of let go for 2 years, I would say, in terms of at least the brand side of it, and now is going to come back in full force. So on Superhero Academy's front, I think I'm just going to talk about storytelling. I'm going to show how the sausage is made for free on YouTube videos and making more content like this. But on Valhalla's front, I'm going to document the journey of what it takes to build an eco-village. And I think that's just going to be... I just don't know anybody else who's doing it. I just really don't. And that's kind of crazy to think. Like, there's very few people showing us how to build a real estate development. There's very, like, even if it wasn't an eco-village, there's not that much content on this. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of content on, like, how to channel your sexuality, or there's a ton of content on like how to tap into LinkedIn, you know what I mean, and have a autopilot sales system and get 1,000 leads, or how to find your first 10,000 Instagram followers. Fuck ton of content like that. But content about like real stuff, like real finance and real like how to get a mortgage, or how to figure out how to become a farmer and then apply and build a kitchen and build a house, like it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, and those who do make it exist will win big time. Even if you look at somebody, one of our colleagues, I guess, in the space, Tyler Harris, he runs a couple pages, and I'm not sure how much you know about like his actual business and what he does besides that, but I think he does like life insurance or something, and he's like he vlogged for the past like 3 years or something like that. Is massive in this industry. He just saw it from the industry that he was already in, and he's like dominating in that field, and also is like dominating in other ways. Like he's big when it comes to business, finance, all these different things. But his like what it was built on, and he amassed this huge network of people being known while he was vlogging and documenting and doing his daily lives as he was jumping from town to town to town doing this life insurance deals. That's interesting. What's the first plant that you're gonna, or what's the first tree you're gonna plant, fruit tree you're gonna plant this year?
We're definitely planting thousands of blueberry bushes, strawberry bushes, and raspberry bushes. That's for sure. We're gonna more than double or triple our garlic production, and I will definitely plant a lot of fruit trees as well. Most likely pears, plums, apples. Yeah, pears, plums, apples, cherry trees probably as well will be the 4 staples. And eventually I'd like to end up doing some vineyard stuff, but that's in some time. For now, it's really like from a project perspective, the goal is to establish the first house, really get the first 5-acre piece functioning as a homestead, like a real farm, but it's the foundation of a co-op of farms where many families could own a house, but also have a farm. And whether they're directly themselves are farming it, or they are just allowing that land to be farmed as part of the co-op and sharing in the profits of the farm as a whole, that's going to be a game changer. And then when people buy the land, rather than just here buy the land and then the person who sold you it put the money in their pocket and none of it went into the ecosystem. And when I mean ecosystem, I mean not the financial ecosystem. I mean the physical ecosystem, the planet ecosystem. That's where I radically plan on shifting things. It's like, yes, the person who owns the land will get their cut, and here's the investment we're going to now make into the soil of that property, like adding in compost teas and compost itself, and regenerating the earth, making garden beds that can start producing, installing greenhouses, or upgrading for each lot that's sold the equipment and the greenhouses that are there for the entire farm. So there's I just have a hypothesis around how I can go about it, and I'm studying the Elon Musks of the world, not because of what they're doing in their specific market, even though I will look at that too, more so about how they are approaching disruption than and how I can approach disruption from this perspective. And I see very little disruptors when I look out into the world. Mr. Beast is a disruptor on YouTube, for example. Huge disruptor. Casey Neistat was kind of a disruptor, but I think he built that on the back of other vloggers like BF versus GF and CTFFC or whatever his name was. The guy who had a brain tumor and literally vlogged it. It was incredible. He had brain surgery and vlogged it. Unbelievable. Because he had the most consistent vlog. He had not stopped vlogging for like 7 years or 8 years or something. So he was like the pioneer of that genre. But then Casey took that and made it way more watchable, and just he added what I would consider to be cinematography to it and storytelling to it in a way that was better. So there are very few disruptors, and I'm spent a lot of time researching those disruptors, and now I'm in the phase of mobilizing that into the smallest of scales. And so this podcast is a part of it. The vlogs around Valhalla are going to be a part of it. And we'll see what we can get going on some other fronts. But I've got some good plans to double down. And rather than focusing on like the big web that I think Valhalla was successful at in its original birth, I'm going to focus on like how do we scale like very, very powerful 1,000 true fans in Montreal alone.
Yeah, you should get on some radio shows and some different
Mm-hmm.
different faces around town around here is exactly what I was going to recommend.
Yeah, we had done that.
I know you've been on radio shows. I actually listened to it whenever. I mean, I saw the YouTube video.
That's the whole point.
I think that's
and we vlogged that too.
Yeah, it's a smart idea. I think it is to better go deep and not, like I was saying earlier, there's more than just the virtual space. Like,
Absolutely.
how do you like break down a big tree or plant a big tree right in the center of the concrete out in front of the cathedral out there?
So there are stunts that I have.
Yeah, how do you hold a tree for 24 hours in front of the cathedral?
I am very inspired by Mr. Beast and his ability to bust a stunt that in the end gets a lot of people talking about a topic.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, the guy got 20 million trees planted. So that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
That's on my impossible list to plant 1 million trees. So it's like, okay, great. He did that. How do I use what I've learned in media to now bring it back to the physical world? And that's like, for me, it is a return to that land. I do not want to post on social media. I can't stand social media anymore, really. It's not my highest excitement. I do like informative content. I do love YouTube, and I do plan on doing a lot more of it. And I'm already accelerating that. There's tons of clips coming out from this very episode and episodes before it. But I know now that I just have that responsibility, and I get to play that game. And more than ever, I have the resources and the opportunity and the knowledge, but most importantly, the community and the support to do that.
Love it. Yeah, we could jam on this. Definitely think you should get outside of Notre Dame or Notre Dame, however you say it, and give away 1,000 apples, 1,000 trees, and do live of it, and then plant a little note to the local news stations to come on through. That's a fun little project.
Well, we're doing food for free this year at Valhalla, so all the people who come to the
live stream the whole thing, and
exactly, we're literally giving food away for free. I think that's exactly it. So how do I take Valhalla and go away from my danger is that over time I entered into preacher mode versus into fun mode.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were making fun, exciting content is when Valhalla did the best. And when we were exploring and learning, that's when we did the best. And when I started preaching and teaching, because I thought that was the way that we can help fund Valhalla, because I'd seen so many eco-villages literally fund themselves through education, is when I kind of fell off the wagon of what this really meant. And I basically fell down the same rabbit hole that essentially like vegans are christened for, where they're like,
it's plant-based now.
Sure. Plant-based, whatever it is, right? Like when somebody says you have to do this and you're ashamed.
We had to change the whole lingo.
They go, fine, there you go, right? So the fact that kind of negative reputation formed around the way that even we talk about climate change, we talk about some of these societal problems, that had to happen, and I didn't realize how I was participating in it, but now I do. And so, yeah, prepare for my understanding of thumbnails, headlines, content, shock, outrageous media culture, all in the name of building a movement, and that movement just being focused on Montreal as much as possible. And I would love to continue traveling the world. I know I will, but this is not the season for that for me.
2020, baby.
Bam. Anything else you want to say? What should people go check out other than Impact Media and check out all the links in the description? You know where they are.
Can't say it better than myself. Yeah. Yeah. Shoot me a message. I respond to everybody. I'm hanging out always.
Boom. We'll see you in the next episode, ladies and gentlemen. Bam.
Peace.